my last meeting went a little bit long, and I said, hey, my people are probably waiting. So good morning. Good morning. For those of you who are in the Houston area, I hope that you are somewhere being safe, staying inside and off the roads if at all possible. It is a mess outside. It is not safe on the roads. And so just if you don't have to go anywhere, like the mayor and all of the city officials and county executives have said, stay off the road if you don't have to be any place. And if you do have to go someplace, make sure that you are checking in advance to see the conditions so that you can map out a path that hopefully is not underwater, which most of the city is experiencing flooding of some sort. So make sure that you check before you head out, because I want you guys to all be safe. It is Tuesday, September the 22nd. I had to look at my calendar. I broke my Apple Watch last week, and I feel so disconnected. It was my whole little fitness studio and all of that. But listen, that's a small thing from what so many people are dealing with. So I lose track of time a little bit. At any rate, there was a full slate of NFL games. We have now completed 2 full weeks in the NFL. The NBA is inching closer and closer to the finals. And college football is, some games are being played, some are not. So there's so much uncertainty as it relates to that. And one of the things that we did notice this weekend, unfortunately, there were a lot of injuries, season-ending injuries, ACLs, knees that were torn. Some of the star players in the league were sidelined for the rest of the season. And it brings up the question about preseason and that contact. And so while in the CBA, which is what the players negotiate, the union negotiates with the league in terms of all kinds of standards, right? How much contact, how much practice, all those things. There's always there seems to be a desire to lean toward not as much practice or contact. But now the argument comes up and says, well, you know what? Perhaps some of that contact and some of that preseason play is needed so that your bodies get used to contact, so that you get ready for the game speeding up a lot, which is what live action gives you. The game speeds up. You can practice, but it's very difficult to simulate live action without having live games. So is that in fact one of the things that has led to so many injuries? I've seen some players say that. I've seen some former players make comments about it. I see more former players and current players talk about it. So at any rate, something to think about. We have so much to get to today. Good morning, Sonia. Welcome. I'm guessing maybe more of you will tune in and catch us live today, because you should not be out on the road. Not that you shouldn't be working from home, because one thing COVID has taught us, it is how to work from home. So it's not so much, well, it's a flood day I'm going to be in and it's a day off. Now it's just a flood day and I'm still going to be working from home. So at any rate, like I said, if you do have to move around, be safe, be really careful. And if you have to move around, pay attention to where the water is, where you're going, and definitely try to do it in the daylight, okay? At night, you have no idea what those roads are like. I remember a few years ago, guys, after the Rockets had a playoff game against the Warriors, I guess it was the Memorial Day flood several years ago. And when I left the stadium after the game, I didn't get home till almost, 4 a.m, because there were just some routes I knew not to take, and then other routes I tried to take. It looked like it was flooding, and so I got off the road. It's a lot to navigate these roads. I didn't have a choice. I was at the game, and the storms rolled in, and by the time the game was over, the city was flooding. I was calling people, asking them, hey, what are you hearing about the roads? What are you hearing about what's open? And I share that to say, if you're working or you have to be out, get somebody to help you. Get somebody to help you navigate how to move around the city so that you can try to avoid the flooded areas, because nothing's worse than being stuck in a flood. I thankfully have not experienced that. I know many who have. It can be dangerous. It can be, life-threatening. But you also don't want to drive and have your car submerged in water and then find yourself in a panic trying to get out. So again, get somebody to help you navigate it if you absolutely have to get out for work or something. If there's something that you think you need from the store, something that you would like from the store, not a need, just stay in. Give it to, maybe tomorrow afternoon, this thing's going to be better. I'm not sure. I'm not a weather forecaster or a meteorologist, but do pay attention to that. All right, so let's get into what's happening around the National Football League. Let's look at what's happening. And thank you for joining us, Sonia. Hey, Carolyn, good morning. Welcome. Glad that you could be a part of Chalk Talk today. Listen, the Houston Texans, we'll start with that because that's the team that, I cover day in, day out. They're 0-2. And so Carolyn says, I remember we stayed at the arena until the water had receded. Yeah, so Carolyn's talking about that Memorial Day flood after that Warriors and Rockets game. It was a later start because they're in the Western Conference. So maybe the game was like an 8:00 start. By the time a game was over, it was 11-ish or so. By the time I did post game, it was after midnight. And so I headed out and did not realize how bad the roads were. And I immediately started, pulled over and started, communicating with people on Facebook or with friends about what they saw. What are you hearing? Listening to the radio. There was a radio station on. So, it was really something. But jumping back to Houston Texans. So on one hand, I will say to you guys, it's just 2 weeks, right? Before you go into widespread panic. The Texans are, of course, 0-2. They played two of the best teams in the AFC, right? So the thought that they would win either of those games was not, I didn't pick them to win either of those games. And next week they go and play Pittsburgh. That's going to be another game that's going to be tough for them to win. I think perhaps, and I'm just pulling up the standings, right? We're 2 weeks in. So the big talk is about, the Texans got rid of DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason, who arguably was the best player on the team, right? Definitely was Deshaun's top offensive weapon. And having a player like DeAndre Hopkins, I think here's the thing, made everybody else on the offense so much better. Because when you have a talent like DeAndre Hopkins on one side, it makes a difference about how the other team defends him, which creates opportunities for the other receivers. All right. So he was the number one receiver. Will Fuller would line up on the other side, a speedster who could stretch the field. Of course, the biggest question remains Will Fuller's ability to stay healthy and stay on the field. If he's on the field, he's a great talent, right? Because he's got speed that's tough to defend. The key is keeping him healthy and on the field. He had no targets on Sunday. He was stretching out at one point. I don't even know, he doesn't show up in the stat sheet as having played on any targets on Sunday. So, that's an ongoing question. But let's look at the AFC South, the division that the Texans play in. Again, I realize we're 2 weeks into the season, but the Texans are 0-2. The Tennessee Titans are 2-0. Jacksonville and Indianapolis are both 1-1. So what does that mean? The AFC South is not one of the stronger divisions. There's some who think the Titans are going to fall back to some kind of a normalcy in terms of how they're competing. And in case you aren't aware, they do now also have Jadeveon Clowney. He signed as a free agent in the offseason, so he is playing with the Tennessee Titans. Jonathan Joseph went over to the Titans in the offseason as a free agent. But this Texas team looks a little frazzled. Offensively, they look disorganized. And again, they're not doing a great job of protecting Deshaun Watson. I've heard from some of you say, Kim, Deshaun still holds on to the ball too long. okay, perhaps he could still do better at that. But the bigger problem, I think, is there's a deficit with the Texans. I think there is a talent deficit, and there's some concerns about coaching. And we can say that because we see the same kinds of things we've seen for the past, what are we at, 7 years now that Bill O'Brien has been here. Um, Being good enough to win the AFC South, at some point you have to be better than that. And not that I think they're going to necessarily win their division this year, but how do they ever get to the next level? How do they ever even get to a championship game, which is where you have to get to a conference championship before you can even get to the Super Bowl? I just think this team is a ways off, and open to hear what you think about it. But there are some challenges. Defensively, they looked. The word I use is disorganized. They just looked. They made some plays. They are playing again one of the best teams in the AFC. Lamar Jackson, who was last year's MVP, they did a decent job early of defending him. I say defending him, defending the Ravens. But in the second half, they just could not seem to stop the run. And so what is it about this team? What does it need to be able to stop the run? Why do they look really soft in the middle? So there's some things that they're going to have to work out. And of course, if you listen to Coach O'Brien, what he says is, we have to get better. We have to play better. We have to coach better, which is what he's always said. And he's not wrong, right? I think fans get frustrated because they're like, you keep saying that. What does that mean? But all you can get is from the coach is what you can get. So let me, there are some who are already, and is it fair? I think it should be expected that when a player, Deshaun Watson, which people here I think really, really like. I'm just going to pull up the stats from the game so I can give you some of those numbers. People like Deshaun, right? How do you not like him? And people were excited about the fact that he got a huge contract extension, a great payday for him and his family, right? That's life-changing, a life-changing contract. It should be. But then what happens is people want to now say, okay, you're making this money. What are you doing? And we could say, well, you should just look at what's around him. But the reality is that is how players are judged. And so there probably will be even more, or for the first time, really, criticism of Deshaun when things don't go well because the expectations are higher and because of what the compensation is. Now, should that be the case? It doesn't matter what should be the case. I'm just telling you, those are the expectations. And you could, in his post-game interviews on Sunday, he said, we're going to have to stay positive. I mean, he knew that. We're going to have to, not listen to what basically the naysayers, and that's not my word, that's my word, not his, say outside, and we're going to have to stay together. We can't listen to the noise. I think he already knew that it was going to be coming. And so Deshaun Watson on, I don't want the first half summary. I want the entire game summary. Let me pull up the final stats for you guys. It's odd. It was, okay, here we go. So Deshaun completed 25 of 36 passes. He was sacked 4 times. So there's another issue, right? There's another issue. That's a number. Remember how high the number was 2 years ago, right? So we thought in the offseason, the entire offensive line had a chance to practice, work out together for whatever workout meant in COVID. But last year, they brought in Laramie Tunzel right before the season. So he didn't get a training camp with the team. Titus Howard was a rookie. He got injured, so he didn't have as much time with the team. And then just so as a unit, that offensive line had not completely spent a lot of time together. Well, they're all the starters are back, and they still don't look like a good unit. So is that coaching? They gave up 2 first-round picks for Tunzel, and he is thought to be the future really on that offensive line. So the offensive line has got to do better, right? And there's some people that say, "Oh yeah, well, you should move Titus." No, don't move him. He's got to get comfortable playing wherever you're going to play him. He's only played. There's only been 8 quarters of football this season. I mean, they haven't looked great, but the answer is not to panic. I know that much. But let's look at the numbers. So Deshaun Watson was sacked 4 times. He was intercepted once. He threw 1 touchdown. His passer rating was 89.5. On the other side, Lamar Jackson completed 18 of 24 passes. He was also sacked 4 times, threw 1 touchdown, but his passer rating was 113. In terms of rushing, Deshaun Watson ran the ball 5 times for 17 yards. In total, the Texans rushed for 51 yards. It's not really going to get it, right? Johnson was 11 attempts for 34 yards, and Will Fuller did attempt 1 rush. He did get in the game, one rush, and he got no yards on that. And there were no passing targets for Will Fuller. But on the other side, the Baltimore Ravens amassed 230 yards on the ground. So let me just put a pin in it right there. When I said the Texans' run game, run defense is a problem, you cannot give up 230 yards of on the ground and be successful, right? Now, the running back had 54 yards. Edwards had 73 yards. Ingram 55. Dobbs. I mean, they averaged on the ground when you average for the entire rushing number 6.2 yards a carry. That's not a good number. That's not the kind of number that you can win with defensively. You've got to do better. So they had 1 fumble, of course. Kiki Kuti had a costly fumble. Fumbled and lost. So the team, it wasn't pretty. It was not a pretty outing. Hey, Dwight Williams. Good morning. It's good to see you. Dwight says Bill O'Brien needs to go. Too predictable, no adjustments, and too many weak positions. That pretty much sums it up, Dwight, because he is not only the head coach, he is the general manager. Like, this is his team. He has assembled this team. And you could say, well, but he was only officially named general manager this offseason. Yeah, but he's been basically the general manager for the past 2 seasons. So these are the people that he's decided he wants. This is his squad, right? This is a team that he has put together. And I don't know that this entire season, if we are going to ever hear people not talk about the loss of DeAndre Hopkins. I just don't think we will. People are not going to get over it, especially because DeAndre Hopkins has gone to Arizona. The Cardinals are 2-0. He's starting off. He looks great. Right? He's one. You just don't get rid of your best player. And you say, well, Deshaun Watson was your best player. Well, there are many who say DeAndre Hopkins was your best player. And he is gone. And you didn't even get a first-round pick in return for him. I think we found ourselves saying that, too, last year about Jadeveon Clowney. So as a general manager, when you judge the work that Bill O'Brien has done as a general manager, it's difficult to say really anything very positive about what we've seen. Kenny Stills, it was good to pick him up in the deal with Miami when they brought in Tunzel. And perhaps Tunzel will indeed, and he's not the problem. I mentioned Tunzel, but it's the offensive line. It's not that Tunzel is just, looks awful. I mean, so I don't want to give that. But let's just talk about the offense. So for the Texans, third down efficiency, they're 3 of 9, 33%, not great. And they're 0 for 1 on fourth down. They ended up with 304 total yards of offense. So, again, they were playing a Lamar Jackson-led Baltimore Raven team that is really talented, and there's no way around it. But if you were talking about becoming a champion, you're going to have to beat some of the really talented teams. You can't every year not beat those teams and say, well, that they were really good. And that's not what the Texans are saying. That's not what Bill O'Brien said at all. They got to play better and they got to do better. So they have got to stop starting going 3 and out. Right, they've got to be able to get something going early to give them some momentum. They've got to get the taste of winning into their system in 2020. And so next week they travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. That is definitely not going to be a gimme. And the Steelers, I wanted to just give you some context. So they don't have lines yet. And I will talk about the Cowboys in just a moment, everybody. I know y'all want to talk about the Cowboys. You want to talk about the Cowboys, and I get it because that was actually a pretty exciting game. But let's look. So the Steelers are 2-0. They're in the same division with Baltimore. The Kansas City Chiefs are 2-0. The Buffalo Bills are 2-0. And Tennessee is 2-0, right? The Arizona Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins' new team, is 2-0. And they've looked really good. I mean, Kyler Murray has looked really good. And the other day, DeAndre Hopkins tweeted, I'm starting this push for the MVP. Like he will be, and granted, we're 2 weeks in, I understand that. There are 14 more games. There's 15 more weeks of this season. But already, Kyler looks really good, right? And bringing in DeAndre Hopkins is definitely a factor. So just trying to give you, want to look at. So next weekend, the Texans and Steelers play in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is a 3.5-point favorite. That number may change during the week, but that's where they are right now. The Cardinals play the Lions. The Cardinals are 2-0. The Lions are 0-2. The Cardinals are 5.5-point favorites. And for you Cowboy fans, the Cowboys play the Seahawks. The Seahawks are 5.5-point favorites. So I'm going to talk about the Cowboys for a bit because I know there are a lot of you that listen who are Cowboy fans. Great game on Sunday. It's really exciting. The question became, I saw the question a lot, it's like, is it more about the fact that the Cowboys were just so good? It was such a great comeback? Or did the Falcons really blow it? So I think it's a combination. I mean, the Falcons really blew it. They really blew it. And the Falcons, but the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, that whole unit looked really good. I mean, they capitalized on it. That onside kick was just, that's kind of like Pop Warner football. Like you just can't stand around and watch the ball. But the Cowboys are 1-1, and they're going to take on the Seahawks, who I think just let me say now, the Seahawks are playing really well. And what you see from Russell Wilson, I mean, Russell's playing as well as anybody in the league, if not better. Cam Newton looked good in that game on Sunday because I think there was a lot of questions like how good is Cam going to be? Of course, the Patriots won in week 1, but they defeated the Dolphins, which is not a team that people thought really a whole lot about. They're getting better, but they're not the Seahawks. And that was a great contest with the Seahawks and the Patriots. So Cam Newton looked good. I was glad for him. But the Seahawks team is pretty good. The Cowboys go into Seattle. And for all you Cowboy fans, I'm one of the rare Houston people that does like to see the Cowboys win. I don't think you win on Sunday. I just don't think that you're going to beat the Seahawks because they're really good. But it should be a really good game. Hey, good morning, Tony. Tony says you have to take into account who these 2-0 teams are playing. You do. So we can do that. I mean, The Ravens are 2-0, and one of the teams they played was the Texans. The Chiefs are 2-0, and they, wait, where did it go? Let me get back to my list of my games. The Chiefs had no cakewalk. I mean, they had to fight for the game on Sunday. The Chiefs played the Chargers and won it in overtime. Like, they had to go to overtime to beat the Chargers. That was 20, and they won that game by a field goal. So the Steelers beat the Broncos in week 2. So yeah, we can take into account who some of these 2-0 teams have played. But at the end of the day, in the scorecard, on the scorecard, and the record books is just going to say 2-0. So yeah, I think you could take into account who they played, Tony. But I also think if you look at a team like the Texans, you could say that they didn't just lose; they didn't look good. So I think that's when you look at a team like the Texans, a little bit of a concern. So you talk about Tennessee. Let's look at Tennessee. So Tennessee started off. They played Denver on Monday Night Football. They won that game. Week 2, they defeated Jacksonville. They won both those games. So the question is, how good is Denver? How good is Jacksonville? We will see coming up this weekend. Denver plays at Minnesota, and then they're home for Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Houston before they go into their bye week. So, you could say Tennessee got off to a weak start. I think the bigger question is really not just the wins and losses, because last year we saw, for instance, the Jaguars get off to who got off to an 0-2 start? Was it Philly? And they came back and had a pretty good season. Philly doesn't look great, right? And listen, I saw an interview with their coach who was asked about his quarterback, and said, hey, what do you think he's taken a step back? And I'm just looking at Carson Wentz and saying that you think he's taken a step back. So in the game on Sunday, Carson Wentz had no touchdowns and threw 2 interceptions. And the head coach said, well, or why does it look like he's taking a step back? That was a question asked to the coach in the post-game interview. And he said, well, I don't know. Okay, that's not a good answer. I mean, we're just going to have to look at it. Yeah, that's not a real affirmative. That's not good, right? But it's honest. So, they could get it together. They're going to have to get better play out of Carson Wentz, clearly, if they're going to do better. And Tony says the Steelers have not impressed offensively versus the Giants or Broncos, but defense is devastating them. Right. So the thing is, if you can win without being impressive, it's a win. Because remember, also it's been after being out for a season, getting back in, no preseason, and kind of getting back in the system. I mean, there's nothing, guys, like playing live games. Like, nothing replaces it. So this is a little bit of their preseason for some, especially a guy who didn't play all last season. So I think that's maybe some of what you're seeing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so, yeah, the defense has been great. It's been devastating, which is going to be a problem for the Texans because offensively they've not looked great. The pass rush is still not really good. They didn't run the ball well, and the offense looked out of sync. The play calling again was questionable at times, but some of the the 4th and 1 call. And listen, I just think it's early. There's a lot of football left, but the early indications are not great. They got to really do some things a lot better for this Texans team. And of course, Dwight will talk about the Raiders and the Saints. So Raiders and Saints. So it was the Raiders christening their new stadium. And it was a great Monday night game. The Raiders are 2-0. The Saints were, let me give you. So let's look at what happened in that game. So for all you Raiders fans, David Carr completed 28 of 38 passes. That's about just a 74% completion. He had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. His quarterback rating was 120, right at 121. For the Saints, Drew Brees completed 26 of 38 passes for about 64%. He threw for 312 yards. He had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Their run game, let's go down and see where the big difference was. 4th down efficiency, the Raiders were perfect. Total yards, the Saints actually had 424 total yards to the Raiders 375. But the Raiders had more plays. The Raiders had more yards on the ground. But here's a big thing for the Saints. The Saints were penalized 10 times for 129 yards. That's a touchdown. I mean, that's 129 yards. You can't win games giving up that, having that many penalties for those many yards. And in time of possession, the Raiders had the ball about 13 minutes, 12 and a half minutes longer, possessed the ball 12 and a half minutes longer than the Saints did. So it was not their finest outing. So yeah, the Raiders are excited. The Saints are scratching their head and saying, okay, we got to see about this AFC South, because you got Tampa Bay. People thought Tampa Bay and the Saints were going to be like right at the top. They might, but I don't think Atlanta's going to stay where they are. Like, I think they will rebound. They've got enough weapons. They should be better than they were on this past Sunday. Carolyn says, I think the Saints were outcoached. So they may have been. I'm not a huge John Gruden fan. It's strictly personal. I mean, he obviously is a good coach. So it pains me to say that they may have been, that you may be right, Carolyn. You got to give credit where credit is due. He did call a really good game. Tony says the Raiders are frauds, defining stretch coming against the Pats, Bills, and Chiefs the next 3 weeks. You make a He started off really well. So like I said, we'll see. I mean, I think it will be interesting. Those are some great games coming up. The Patriots, the Bills, and the Chiefs. All those teams look good. And so we'll see how they look. Drew Brees is done. Should insert Jameis Winston. Tony, do you really believe that? So that's not going to happen. not yet, right? But you do have Jameis there waiting for if something would have happened to Drew Brees. I think that I was glad that Jameis got another job, but and I don't know what he's done to approach the game differently. Like, his issue obviously is not talent; it is discipline and consistency. He threw 30 touchdowns last year and 30 interceptions. Like, that's not a good number. That doesn't win. That doesn't make for a good season. So I think it's going to be, things would have to really fall way off for Jameis Winston to get in the game. And so let's go back to Drew. I mean, Drew Brees, you complete 68% of your passes. That's not awful. and throw for 312 yards, I don't know that it's time yet to. Well, I know it's not going to happen. It'll be a while before they would really be willing to pull Drew Brees from that game. So listen, it is football season for real, and we are talking about it. And this is week 3, so we'll see what happens next week and see how things start to kind of shake out. The other thing, though, is we can't get out of here today without talking about the NBA, right? The conference championships are going on. As it stands right now in the East, Miami and Boston will play tomorrow night. Miami leads that series, the Eastern Conference Finals, 2-1. And in the West tonight, the Lakers play the Nuggets, and the Lakers are up 2-0. But listen, Denver was right there. It took a last-second amazing shot from Anthony Davis to win that game on Sunday. So it's 2-0 in that series. Game 2 was clearly a lot better than game 1. So I think there's a ways before, that series is not necessarily over yet. We'll see how Denver rebounds, if you will, from that loss on Sunday. One of the things about this Nuggets team, at least that we've seen to this point, is that they believe they can win. Like it doesn't suffer from a, syndrome of, who is this? And, we're not good enough. So that's not been their story. And so Tony says, Brees has been pedestrian going back to last year, dink and dunk quarterback. Yeah, I mean, Brees is getting older, and there is nothing. Father Time is undefeated, and Brees is getting older. Tom Brady is getting older. And so, but it's Brees's consistency that I think we will look to see how that shows up. And Jameis is more physically gifted, but what does he do with it, right? He was more physically gifted than other quarterbacks last year, but what does he get out of it, right? 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns, physically gifted or not. If your gift doesn't lend to any level of success, if you don't have some consistency, then him being gifted, there's a lot of gifted folk who aren't successful. So what do you do with the gift? You make a great point. There's no question about his gift. I hope to see him walk into that gift, right? Because he is. I remember I've seen the flashes of it in the league. I remember him at Florida State, but it has taken him a while to grow up. And I hope that he gets there. But there's no question, Tony, that he's gifted. Charles said that's Denver's best shot. Lakers, and yeah, that may have been it, right? When you fight back and you get to that, you get that close to a win, that close in a game, and then the win's kind of knocked out of you. That could be it. So we don't know yet if that Denver team will be able to overcome it. I think you make a great point, Charles. Lakers in 5. So you're giving Denver, you're giving them a shot. He says that they'll win, that they will win at least one. They won't get swept. Question is, can Denver play defense for 4 quarters? And that's going to be the key. Defense takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of you. And I'm trying to go back to what they did. Yeah, they're going to have to play. It's a matchup. There's some matchup problems in that series, right? But playing defense for 4 quarters is key, especially if the Lakers' weapons are all kind of operating, right? We know what you can expect from LeBron James. There's Anthony Davis, and then you have the complementary players that if you get anything from those guys, you have the guys that end up, what do you get from a Rajon Rondo? What do you get from Danny Green? Does Dwight Howard give you a little something? I mean, you have some other people that you've got to get a little more from. And so I think that's a great question. And what is the difference? The difference is going to be in defense, right? Because offense is obviously exciting, but defense really does win championships. And I will tell you that is going to be interesting. So I look forward to tonight's game because I think it'll be very telling. They need to win tonight if they have a chance of really, of course, it's just the third game. And they've come back from being down 3 games before. That's not a recipe for success, especially against a Lakers team that's so talented and so gifted, right? It's so talented and so gifted. So I look forward to that game tonight. And this weekend, there's some great games. The East series, I don't know who you guys have, Miami or Boston. I think people are disappointed that it wasn't the Lakers and the Clippers. But it'll either be the Lakers or Denver. And I think most people would pick the Lakers to win this series, for the Lakers to be going up against either the Heat or Boston for the NBA championship. We'll know soon enough. So it's a fun time of year. And we will check in. We did not even look at baseball. And so for Houston Astros fans, the news that Verlander is going to have Tommy John surgery. He's going to miss the rest of this season, probably all of next season, and then see if he can come back in 2022. For some, they say his career is over. I'm never big on talking about whether somebody can come back or not. I think it's so individual. And there are people that come back. I remember, think about it in football a few years back when, I can't think of his name now. The running back that played for Minnesota, he lives in Houston. Anyway, he came back. It just escaped me. And so now I'm going to have to find him. But let's look at what the Astros are doing. And let's look at, so the Astros on yesterday, wait, let me go to standings. That's what I want. Okay, here we are. So let's look at in the American League West. The Oakland Athletics have clinched the 33-20 record. The Astros are now 27-27. So the chances, they are going to be trying to clinch to get a wild card spot, right? Because you're not going to catch Oakland. The White Sox are 34-20. And Minnesota is 32-32. Those teams are both clinched. And then Tampa Bay is 36-19. The Yankees are 31-23. So Toronto's 28-26. Cleveland is 30-24. The Stros are 27-27. It is a bit of an uphill climb. They are, they're right behind the Yankees. Their percentage of wins is just because of the number of games they've had. So we'll see. We'll see what this team can do in terms of being able to pull into the wild card. They are still in it, and I would never give up on a team that's coached by Dusty Baker. I like Dusty Baker, so there's that. The question is, we had that one, and George Springer. Tony says George Springer is gone. Adrian Peterson, thank you, Tony. I could not think of his name. So remember Adrian Peterson a few years ago when, he came back from that knee injury, and the next year he came back and he was just a beast, right? He got the comeback player of the year. So my point is, you never know. So I'm, I don't know that I'm willing to say that Verlander's career is over. He doesn't think it is. Of course, he's got to be positive about it, but we'll see, right? We will see. And I just, for him, hope for the best, right? Because that's a tough way to go out. It's a tough way to go out. And that Tommy John surgery is one that is a difficult surgery for pitchers to recover from. And it requires, like an entire season. So they're talking about him coming back in 2022. So we will see. Not having him, the thought was, he's going to come back for the postseason. But again, that's not going to happen. And Charles says, come on, Stros. Listen, That's who you're rooting. That's what we're rooting for right now. If you're a Houston fan, is the Stros. We're waiting to find out what's going to happen with this Houston Rockets team in terms of what they do about coaching. I'm really curious to see who they land. There was conversations about Jeff Van Gundy's name always comes up. Of course, Jeff has coached here before. There's been the name of Turner, who is the assistant coach right now. He was kind of the defensive coordinator of this team, if you will, for whatever that's worth. Sam Cassell's name has been mentioned. Tyronn. I don't really see Tillman hiring any of those guys. I don't know, but we'll see. I would love to see Sam Cassell get a shot. He's been with the Clippers for a while. And here's another guy who's not even coaching right now. So him getting a head job is not, doesn't sound like a real possibility, but it's Mario Elie, who was a great player kind of coach when he still played, knows the game so well. I would like to see him get a shot. Hang on, guys. I got to turn this. It's trying to give a little light because the whole outside thing changed in terms of coming in. So at any rate, I'd like to see Mario Elie get a shot, at least to be on a staff, right? So if Sam Cassell got a head job, I'd like to think that he would hire Mario as an assistant. But there are some guys that I would like to see get a chance to get a shot. So you said, Charles, no. What is that about? About no to Cassell? No, I like Sam Cassell. Vernon Maxwell's pushing for Sam Cassell. I don't know if any of you guys follow Vernon Maxwell on Twitter. He's funny. Vernon Maxwell is a funny follow, like on Twitter, and he continues to ride the Utah fans, right? But he's funny. I knew Vernon really well, and I'm just surprised that his sense of humor comes through so well online. So that's funny. Charles says I'm an Elie fan. I am too. I mean, I know Mario personally, and I just think he knows the game so well. The reality is, with him not coaching, he's not going to get a shot to jump in as being a head coach, I don't think. I mean, unfortunately, that didn't happen for guys, right? Oh, okay. You said no to Van Gundy. I am a Mario fan, and I'd like to see him get a shot. I'd love to see the Rockets hire Sam Cassell and Sam hire Mario Elie. I think that'd be awesome. Charles says no to Van Gundy. I like Van Gundy on the broadcast. Let's leave it there. I just can't imagine why they would hire him. I think he does a good job at what he's doing, and let's just leave it at that. All right, everybody, we are out of time. If you're in the Houston area, stay safe. Just because the rain may have subsided where you live, like in my part of town, it's quiet right now, but that rain will kick back up quickly and the streets are going to flood quickly just because the ground is so saturated. So be careful as you're moving around. And the other thing is a couple of things. Make sure you register to vote. The deadline is approaching. There is a voter registration drive this Friday. The Houston Texans are having the Houston Rockets are hosting a voter registration drive at Toyota Center. Make sure you get registered. The deadline is approaching. The other thing is make sure your household is counted in the census. Listen, it's super important. The census they only take those numbers every 10 years, and it determines the resources in the area. So wherever you live in the country, you should be counted. It has to do with money for roads and schools and healthcare and all sorts of resources. So the census is very important. Make sure that you're counted. Make sure that you're registered to vote. And as Charles said, to stay safe, everybody. Like, stay safe. Whatever your feelings are, get out of your feelings and get registered and be prepared to vote. And I say, wherever you live, if you live in a part of the country where early voting has started, get it out of the way. Get it out of the way, get your vote in, be counted. Now, I'm not one to tell you who to vote for, but I am going to tell you to be counted and to be smart about the selection that you make. And just make sure the choices you make are people who will represent you and your family and your community in a way that you want to be represented. I don't know how else to say it. And so I think the choices could not be more different at the top of the ticket, but their choice is all down the ticket, right? Make sure that you know who's on your ballot. You can go online and find out so that when you go into that voter booth, you're prepared to pull the lever for people that you want to represent you, your family, and your community. That's really, really important. Get registered. Also, hey guys, we are still in a pandemic, right? We are, unfortunately, we have hit the unfortunate mark of 200,000 Americans being dead in this country from the coronavirus, which sounds and feels almost criminal, but that's where we are. So whatever you think about it being a hoax, or all I can say is be smart, wear your mask, practice social distancing, wash your hands, especially now we're heading into flu season, right? So some people won't know if it's a cold, if it's a coronavirus. Just practice great hygiene. Make sure you wear your mask. It doesn't matter if you're old or young. We know that everybody is susceptible to this virus. It is a silent virus. We can't really see it, but you don't want to get it. Like, that's the goal. Maybe you survive it. Maybe you don't have long-term effects, but the goal is to not get it. So I got to leave you with that all the time. Charles says, I am willing to say do not vote for the current occupant of the White House. There he did. Charles said it. So I think that we should all make a smart choice. And, listen, we've got to be safe. We got to be smart, and we've got to stay together. I didn't even mention the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died over the weekend. I've talked about it on my social media pages. What a loss. What a legend. What an icon for this country. And it's unfortunate that her death, while there are some who are celebrating her life, remembering her, that her death right away became, I will say this, it became a fundraising tool the night it was announced that she had transitioned for the Republicans and for President Trump. They were sending out fundraising texts as soon as it was announced that she was dead. I just think there's something about that shows a real lack of not even just character, but humanity. At any rate, we're out of time for today. I've gone over. Thank you guys so much. Follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Kim Y. Davis. You can follow me on Instagram at kim.y.davis. And let me hear from you. If there's something you'd like for me to talk about on the show, somebody you'd like for me to get as a guest, we will have a guest next week, I believe. There was just so much to get to today. And so you can email me, Kim at Kim Y. Davis, or you can inbox me here. Anyway, I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Thank you for being a part of the tribe. And if you will make sure that you share this video with your online community so that we can continue to grow the audience. So much to talk about and so much to do. And together we can all do a little bit of it and get it done. So thank you guys. Have a great, great weekend. I'll see you rest of your week. I'll see you next week. Do something kind for yourself and something kind for